Password.
All right, so it's live now.
It's live now. So sometimes I think you have to go out of the page and then back to it. But usually we can find it. Smoking and Toasting is live now. So I will share. Share now, public. And hey, what's up, Facebook Live? Thanks for joining us.
What's up?
We had like 11,000 impressions from Facebook Live from last week's show.
That's great.
It's huge.
That's very good.
And a pretty huge number seem to watch most of the show. So it was very cool. So thank you, Facebook. What's up and welcome. That's what happens. See, when Facebook is really trying to promote Facebook Live. So when you share it, it shares to your whole friend list. But if you just type a post, it shares to some of your friends.
Yep. Right.
But so that's what's great about Facebook Live is it's a really, really good way to get lots of bulk excitement going on.
If I could remember my password to Facebook, I'd be able to put that up there. And I've tried,
That's the reason I do the terrible thing, which you're not supposed to do, which is I've only got 2-3 passwords, and
yes,
one of those is my password for whatever.
Right.
And that you're totally not supposed to do that.
No.
How are we supposed to remember 38 passwords? And everybody wants you to sign up now.
Oh,
yeah.
you have to sign up, right.
Yeah.
Well, you carry around a book that has all your passwords in it, and then if you lose that book,
then you're screwed.
You're done.
They just sent me a note and they said, are we giving away tickets to the Haunted Swimming Pool Tour? Do you know the answer to that?
I don't know anything about that.
Haunted Swimming Pool. Adam, are we giving away tickets to that? No.
It sounds like fun, though.
That's not today, I guess.
All right, Adam, we ready? So we do the show in 5 12-minute segments, and we'll break between each one, take a breather. We don't usually taste anything in the first segment. We just kind of set up the show and talk about
I'll be back for the second segment.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I need you more in the first segment. I got to fill it with something. And my normal co-host Ian is out for the month, but Pat is subbing with us this week, and so we should have fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right, ready when you are, Adam. Well. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine little radio program or podcast or whatever you call them these days. It's Smoking and Toasting, the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. This is show number 71.
71.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
We've actually done 70 of these, and after today, 71. We're brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and now open in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. I say this every show, but we are planning a road trip. It'll probably be February once Ian is back with us, and he will be able to join us in Fort Worth.
A road trip.
A show.
That's
yes,
good.
Road trip
Fort Worth and
for B&B. Yes,
up in the frozen north.
So that's right, the Great White North.
It's amazing.
We are based out of Houston, but the show is heard all over the world, and we're on Facebook Live, and we're on YouTube, and you can download the podcast easily from Apple's podcast folder or section or whatever they call it, as well as the Google Play store for those who are Android inclined. Ian is on assignment. We had a great special guest who filled in for him last week, Chris Hart from the Houston Whiskey Social. Thank you, Chris. You were awesome. And this week, my friend and business partner, Pat Fant, is in the studio with us.
Hey, how you doing?
And Houston,
this is fun.
Houston, Texas radio legend. Now, I didn't know this, but our special guest today was also a bit of a Houston radio legend in his own time.
Or in my own mind. One of the two, yeah.
Welcome, Trey Boring. Trey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
What was your DJ name?
Trey Matthews, because they said boring can't go out over the air.
Which is your actual
last name? Yes, absolutely.
Name, right. So yeah, we promise that Trey will not be boring today. I'm sure you're tired of hearing that, but he is, among other things, a representative from Cigar Rights of America.
Yes,
and we want to talk a lot about what the challenges are for smokers in terms of the regulations and stuff that are coming down the pike, and then talk about what people, just ordinary people who maybe listen to the show, can do, how to step up and how to be supportive, even if you're not, somebody who can go spend money lobbying Washington. There's there's people who can do that for you. So,
absolutely.
But they all need your help. So we'll be talking about that. And then next week, we want to invite you to join us for show number 72. Maria Todd will be here, and we will be doing the Light Beer Blind Taste Test 2.0.
You won't be doing anything if Maria's here because she will talk the entire time.
Yeah, well, that's why you have to have it. See, with Ian being out for the month, I have to have people on who can talk. So.
She can.
Otherwise, it's just me talking, and that's not good.
Maria can make a conversation of anything. I mean, they come up to her table at lunch and go, "And what would you like to have?" Go, "Oh, honey, if you want to know what I'd like to have, let me tell you the story.
Let me tell you the story of
And she's just amazing.
She's a light beer drinker, and so even though Ian and I can be a little snobby about the beers, we wanted to have Maria on. We did this the last time we did the light beer blind taste test because we wanted to have somebody that was really more of their forte to help balance out the beer snobbery, and she did a wonderful job of that. Good. So she's still upset that Miller Lite was her favorite out of the last one, but one of the things that happened to us after the first light beer blind taste test is we got inundated with people going, "Hey, you didn't try this light beer or that light beer." So I've been collecting them since that show, and we'll have a number of light beers that weren't included on the last show that we'll get to do the blind taste test 2.0. So that'll be fun, and Maria is always a blast. So Trey, let me welcome you to the studio, and I will tell you that I stalked you a little bit on Facebook and went to your Facebook page and discovered, among other things, I discovered that you're from League City, Texas, and that you are not only involved with Cigar Rights of America, but what do you do actually for a living? What pays the bills?
Well, what pays the bills, unlike Glenn Loop thinks my day job is CRA, but I actually run a consulting firm that does international logistics. We work with clients on strategic planning for them bringing goods into the country, utilizing special trade programs that are available in the U.S., and I've been doing that for 20-plus years now.
So I noticed from your Facebook page it looks like you do a bit of traveling. Is that more for the consulting job or for CRA?
For the consulting job.
Okay.
Now, what's funny is every town you go to, I look for a cigar shop because what else are you going to do?
I do the same.
I'm going to get in trouble if I don't find one, so I end up trying to find the local cigar shop and then end up doing a little bit of CRA stuff as well while you're there, being able to talk to folks and get them interested in what we're doing and what they can do to help.
I saw a great shirt, by the way. It said, "In my defense, I was left unsupervised and the cigar store was open."
Absolutely.
So that's that. I noticed, again, back to me stalking you on Facebook, though, that you had posted that you were having a cigar at a Grey Cliff Smoking Lounge in the Nashville airport.
Yes.
I did not know that existed.
Wow. It does. It's right there in the C terminal.
Yeah.
And anytime I'm in and out of Nashville, or if I have a connecting flight and I have enough time, I jump right in. And it's a smoker's lounge, so you get a lot of cigarette smokers.
Of course,
but I absolutely enjoy lighting up the cigar and listening to them complain.
Well, if it's a Grey Cliff Lounge, that's not a cigarette company, that's a cigar company. So
Absolutely.
It's designed for cigars.
The cigar rights conversation makes me think of Mad Men on TV. I mean, when you think of, now these people, they worked in an office building, sort of. And it's in New York, and they're lighting up every 2 seconds. And of course, they're downing another shot of whiskey for the 10 o'clock meeting, and it just goes on. And now, here we are, and we can't even think about lighting a cigar because we're in, the studio is
in a building.
It's in a building.
Yeah.
So you go, we can't do it. Well, if it was Mad Men, we sure could,
And we
would.
We do have the spirits covered, though, because we will be sampling. We will be sampling some spirits and some craft beer as the show goes along. In fact, I just recently read a review of this and wanted to try it, so we will be sampling the Ron Barcelo Imperial Aged Dominican Rum today. Ooh. So that should be interesting. And we've got Ballast Point's Sea Monster Imperial Stout, which we did not get to last week because we had a lot of liquids on the show last week. We also have Bell's Roundhouse India Style Red Ale brewed with honey. And Pat, I did this one for you because I realized we've never done this on the show, and I know it's one of your favorites. We'll also be sampling Real Ale's Fireman's 4 Blonde.
Oh, nice.
Which I know you're a fan of. So we'll be...
Any blonde will do.
That's right.
That's right.
I did have a pretty interesting cigar this week that I was going to mention. I had gotten, I think I got this at the Big Smoke in Las Vegas. It was the La Flor Dominicana 1994, the Roomba size, and it was a really nice cigar. It was a Mexican San Andreas wrapper with binder and filler from La Flor's farm in the Dominican Republic, the Canela farm. It was dark brown. It had a little more of a reddish hue than most of the La Flors, and the pre-light was dark and earthy, very rich tobacco aromas. It lit easily and was huge on the beginning, like notes of pepper and even some almost like meat or beef jerky sort of notes right off the bat. Started off very strong, but then it mellowed out when I was about a half inch in or so. And as I smoked it, the earthiness kind of stayed with it the whole time. Some very pleasant sort of bread yeast sort of flavors and cinnamon coming through. It was nicely complex, medium to full for sure. And that was what I really liked about it, because the last several La Flor Dominicanas that I've had have been their really super powerful double ligero type things, and they're like, well, you got to be ready for those. You better have eaten a big meal.
Yeah.
You know? But this one was a little more subtle, and I liked it a lot. It's nice to see La Flor doing a cigar that's not that strong, although I did read a quote from Lito Gomez with La Flor, who says he'll never make another mild cigar. So I guess that's just their thing. But I did pair it with a short glass of TX blended whiskey. It was a great pairing. It's about an $8 cigar, and price to quality, I'll give it about a 6.5. Trey, our price to quality scale that we do on the show is basically a 1 to 10 scale. And if you give the cigar a 5, it means you got exactly what you paid for. So if you get a 6.5, that's saying, yeah, this is a little better than the price. And of course, I didn't actually pay the $8 for it, but we certainly paid the entry fee to the Big Smoke, which was much more than $8. So.
Absolutely.
I can think of a lot of other things that you could apply that scale to.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great idea.
Well, one of the things that makes me a little crazy about the cigar magazines when they do their ratings is that it's a 0 to 100 rating, but even the worst cigars are getting like 85s and 86s.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So you're looking for, well, okay, does it have to be above a 90 to have been really spectacular? That's a little hard to qualify. So when Ian and I have used this scale since we've been on the show, and boy, if we come up and say something's a 7 or 8, we're going, wow,
yeah.
You got way more than you paid for it, And if you got a 5, means it was good. It was just exactly what it should have been, So
well, that's interesting that you use that scale, because my process of any cigar is, would I pay that money to smoke it again?
That's a really good way to look at it. Yeah,
I've talked to guys all around the country in cigar shops everywhere, and it is funny how that is a very common judgment factor.
Right.
And
I spent X on it. Would I spend it again?
Yes, exactly.
That's really good.
And when you get to the 7 and 8s, you're looking at, would I buy a box?
Right. Exactly. Well, we kind of think of 7s and 8s, that range, as being definitely premium, and once you get over 10, it's super premium. If it's a $13, $14 cigar, that's okay, but man, it better deliver.
Absolutely.
What do you like to smoke when you're, just lighting up on your own?
I am a very wide and varied smoker. I smoke just about anything from the Padrones and the La Flors, all the way to, there's actually a few General and Altadis cigars that I enjoy, and I love a lot of the boutique guys, from the small guys to the big guys. But I tend to be a more full-bodied person. Like for me, the La Flor you were talking about, that for me, unfortunately, I would tell you, is my morning type cigar.
That's okay. Well, some guys, go for like the Connecticut's and the very mild thing if they're having a morning cigar. You start up the scale, huh?
Well, that for me, that is a mild cigar for my palate.
Right.
But, it's one of those where Lito and I had a conversation one time at a cigar event, and he laughed. He goes, "I think you burned your palate." I go, "Probably," and I told him I blame his chisels, because that was it.
So that's one of that, and I would say probably the Diesel are among the strongest things that I've ever smoked, just in terms of the sheer power. And I'm really more of a medium full guy. I like lots of strength, but I really want to be able to tell the complexity. And sometimes with things like the chisel, I enjoy it for what it is, but I'm not quite there with it being just maybe a little too. Like I said, eat a big meal before you have a cigar like that. Well, that's really interesting. So I want to ask you a lot of questions about CRA, and we'll do some sampling coming up in the next segment. And there's a lot going on in the news, by the way, including there's a cigar-shaped asteroid out there that some people think is an alien spaceship.
Now that's a promotion there.
Yeah, it's not. We'll tell you why. Coming up, it's Smoking and Toasting.
That's nice.
Opener.
Try my Facebook again and see if I can figure out what my name is.
So are you all right to do a little sampling with us?
Sure, you bet. I'm sure my boss wouldn't mind at my company.
Oh, lovely.
For a second, I thought it was frozen, but it just was up against the cooling stuff for it too.
I've got a few stout guys that I hang out with that are going to be very jealous that we're sampling one of these. Yes.
Very nice. Yeah, it's. I'm mostly the IPA guy on the show. Ian loves the stouts. I enjoy a good stout too, but he is a barley wine guy. He loves the barley wine.
Oh yeah. Well, for me, it's I'm a huge rum guy.
Are you really? Okay,
absolutely,
cool.
Absolutely.
Well, I read a review of this one it's actually in Cigar and Leisure magazine that was raving about it, and it's not a super expensive rum. It's,
no. There's a lot of them out there that are very reasonably priced that are just outrageous. Wonderfully.
We have had some amazing ones on the show. I'm just going to get a quick photo. All right, and then we'll start with the real ale.
Yeah, no, I have no idea.
We usually start with the lower ABV and
go up.
Go up. Everything cool, Adam?
Yeah, just fixing this one.
Okay.
Yeah, Adam, I'll apologize. I tend to fidget, so if I bust your framing, you're good.
No, you're fine, man.
I laugh. Back in my day, they didn't diagnose you with ADD, but I swear
You were just fidgeting.
I got it. I got
You
it.
got it.
Well, that's one of the reasons I enjoy consulting, because the scenery changes
Right.
and the projects
You have
change, and I can actually focus on it. The guy that impresses me the most is the guy that can sit on a factory floor
Yeah.
and do the same thing every day.
Oh my
Do
God!
this.
I am absolutely impressed with that guy, because I don't care how smart I think I am, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Can't do it.
I understand this very well.
Tab A into slot B for 8 hours a day for
And do it to perfection.
do it to perfection.
I admire guys like that.
Oh, you're right. That's true.
Even cigar rollers, I don't know, and there's some art to that.
Right.
You know, it's not just the tab A, tab B, but
Yeah.
but wow, I don't know how they just keep going. You know,
Well, and to think of it being a handmade product and you still get the level of quality out of the cigars that you get.
right?
I mean, it's a handmade product.
It's actually amazing that there aren't more duds than there are, if you think about it.
Absolutely.
You know, I guess they have the guys that supervise the rollers are pretty good at spotting them and culling them out. But it is amazing. It really is. And I would think we were actually talking with Nimish Desai from Rocky Patel about this a couple of shows ago about is it difficult to keep you're really good rollers because the other factories are trying to hire them away. You know, so
Poaching your rollers.
right? Yeah, it's like in the radio world, you got a hot talent, everybody wants to steal them away from you. You know, so.
What happens in my business, I have trained many of my competitors.
Yeah.
They've worked for me and then went to work for somebody else.
We've trained a few competitors, too.
We sure did that in radio.
And many of them came back.
And many of them came back. Please,
All right,
can
we
I
ready?
come back?
All right. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. We are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. And let me just say this one thing to you. If you're going to try B&B, which you should, because not only are they awesome to sponsor the show, but it's a really great place to eat. Oh, yeah. If you're going, you're probably thinking steak, and that's not a bad thing to do.
Have the bacon.
You have to have the bacon.
Have the bacon.
That bacon appetizer is just, there's no real words I can use to fully describe
basically
how good that is.
Just get up, get in the car, and go to B&B Butcher kind of right now and just say, give me the bacon.
I would be interested to know if anybody has ever gone in and just ordered the bacon after hearing us talk about it in the show.
That's right. Okay, enough about bacon.
Sorry, enough about bacon. Trey Boring is with us. Trey is a representative from Cigar Rights of America. Trey, one more thing I noticed on Facebook, I laughed out loud. So there is such a thing as LOL when you actually do laugh out loud. But I laugh out loud at the post that you put up about a 5-year-old kid in front of you that farted on the plane.
You know, I tell everybody I'm going to write a book one day. Actually, I'm going to write 2 books. The 2 books that I'm going to write are conversations you have in a cigar shop.
Oh, that's a very good idea.
Because I'm going to tell you, it's wide, varied, and unusual. The other thing I'm going to write is a book, because I tend to fly a particular airline, and I'm going to write a book that says, Southwest Airlines, they do serve nuts, and it won't be about peanuts. The stories that you get from just passengers and experiences on the airplane are crazy.
God, yeah.
And last night, flying in from Nashville, this young boy sitting in front of me just let out a very loud fart, and his mother, looking mortified and horrified at him, he goes, "Mom, airplanes give me gas."
Well, there you go.
That's what makes it funny.
That's and
a 5-year-old.
It's a 5-year-old, and the funniest thing is I'm dying laughing out loud behind her, which really proves that most men never mature beyond the age of 15 anyway.
That's no question.
I mean, you go in a boardroom and somebody makes a fart joke and everybody's laughing.
Yeah.
Right. That's all. That's disarming.
George Carlin used to say, farts are funny. They just
absolutely.
are. Yeah, they just are. So let's talk a little bit about Cigar Rights of America. Tell me, before we taste the real ale, tell me about what are the latest challenges? Because there's been a lot of stuff in the press about these latest regulations, and then they didn't go into effect, or some time was given. Where does all of that stand? What's the biggest challenges that cigar smokers and cigar lovers face right now?
Well, the biggest thing is still the FDA and these regulations, because while we have had some minor victories, I would call them, with delays in implementation and things of that nature. The lawsuit that has been put forth by both the IPCPR, CRA, and a couple of other organizations related to premium cigars, we still haven't got that to a conclusion where there's been a win.
Right.
And it's still ongoing. Things are still moving forward. Don't want to make it sound negative. I mean, things are there's some positive things, positive things happening, and then things that are just taking the next step. But the FDA regulations really are the key, because if we go into effect with those, you're going to lose a lot of things, such as big smoke events and things of that nature, where it will get to a point where the people that are putting those on have to create a way where it's not a giveaway cigar. And
because of most of those, you're paying a
ticket price
to get in.
And
but what you get out of it is what you're able to sample.
So there's going to be some elements where the state of California already does that with their event, which is why you don't see very many big events. I mean, here in Houston, we have Texas Cigar Festival that Sirius put on for many years. You have the big Stogie's Wingding event.
Yep, the Wingding. Yep.
You get up to Fort Worth. I know Underground has their big event that they do, and there's others around the country. In Pennsylvania, you've got a lot of those. But what happens in California, the state tax prevented them from doing it. Now, I have a friend that owns a beer and wine bar in Bellflower, California, that's also a cigar shop, only one in major part of L.A. County. And he did a bonanza this past January, in fact, a year ago. And what he did is the ticket price got you a discount on a purchase. And that's the way he got around the free cigars. So, in essence, you and I still got free cigars for our ticket price.
Right.
But it was
he found the legal way
to do that. And I think you're going to see people have to be that creative. And then the other thing is it's just the blends. And I think the fact that the FDA, if all these do go into effect, are going to kill the boutique industry.
Yes.
And that is going to be really bad for most of us in the cigar culture here, where we enjoy trying a little here, a little there. And
it's one of the things that's awesome about cigars is walking into that tobacconist, walking into that humidor and looking and going, oh, that looks interesting. I haven't tried that. And to be able to try and sample, we talked about the test being, would I pay that dollar amount for it again? That really is the key. It's not just about having your favorites, because everybody has their favorites, but it's also about, I think I'm going to try this and see what it's like. It seems to me that the real issue for people who smoke premium cigars is that this legislation that CRA and the others are fighting, it really doesn't make an appropriate distinction between premium hand-rolled cigars and the machine-made stuff that you buy behind the counter
the
at Stop and Go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it is clearly a differentiation. I mean, you know, a premium cigar is a premium cigar, and you know, the Tobacco Control Act originally, as it was initiated, was all about keeping kids from smoking. That's what most of that legislation with the cigarette companies and everything was all about. Well, I hang out in cigar shops around the country, and I'm going to tell you right now, I never find a 16-year-old sneaking in to spend $12 on a cigar.
No, it doesn't
happen.
Yeah, it just
and
doesn't
so
happen.
they're trying to regulate us under the same rules that really don't apply.
And we've talked about this on the show before, but there was a study that was done, a government study, where your tax dollars and mine were spent to determine that teenagers don't smoke premium cigars.
Correct.
They don't buy them. They don't smoke them. I'm like, you know, I could have saved you a lot of money. Just visit a couple of cigar shops and you can tell. You know?
Oh, yeah. And that's been part of what we're using in the lawsuit and other lobbying efforts the CRA is doing. And, you know, we've got a few good things in some of the budgets and in the budget. And it's, you know, we've got some legislative results, I think, that could potentially come down the pipe. I think we've got a good administration that will sign it because they're for smaller government. Whether you agree with this guy or not, it's definitely about smaller government, which I think helps us quite a bit. But it's all about lobbying. I mean, everybody needs to be involved.
Well, what is the FDA goal? What behavior are they trying to encourage or discourage by having these kinds of regulations? I mean, where are they trying to, what's the problem they're trying to fix?
Tobacco use.
Tobacco use by anyone.
Particularly by teens, but by anyone.
Yeah.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think that a part of the problem, too, and it's funny because as this has developed, you know, marijuana has become legal in a number of different states, but part of the problem was that kids would often buy these cheap cigars in, in convenience stores, and then they would basically use them they'd put the joint inside the cheap cigar and use it to basically disguise the smell of the marijuana. Which
they
is
now
don't
worry about that anymore.
Well, they don't have to in a number of states, and even in many of the states where it's not legal, the enforcement or what you call it, they've tagged down the enforcement so much that it's not really that big of a deal. All the while, this legislation still comes down. I mean, there's stuff in this legislation, if it were to pass, that says that a premium cigar would have to have 1/3 of the packaging on the cigar would have to be a warning label.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, I understand the warning label thing, but come on, 1/3 of the entire packaging on every cigar. And one of the biggest problems, you talked about the boutique industry, is that it would make it so expensive and time consuming for them to launch new blends.
Right.
That because of the way the regulation would go into effect. So it's a bummer. We'll talk in a minute about what we can do as ordinary people to fight for our rights to smoke cigars. But first, I wanted to try, and this, Pat, I know is one of your favorites. It's the Fireman's Ford. That's yours right there.
Let me ask you this, Cruz. Do I owe a convenience fee or something here, or do I just start drinking?
Oh, no, you just start drinking.
Okay.
So this is your first time to sit in
I
and
like
sample on
this
the show.
show.
But
This is great.
the only thing that's required is just that you talk a little bit about what you taste and what the flavors are that you're finding in this. And I will tell you right off the bat, this is a beer that I enjoy with cigars from time to time because we've talked about how much I love IPAs, but how so many IPAs, the bitter hop taste that it can leave after you swallow it down doesn't mesh well with cigars.
Right.
So I either will go with the darker things like the stouts and the porters and those, or I'll go with the lighter ones. And this is a blonde ale, and I think probably one of the better blonde ales. It's from Blanco, Texas, and these guys, this is the beer that I think Real Ale is most known for, is their Fireman's Ford.
Yeah. It's a very, very smooth, but it has a lot of richness to it.
Well, and that's what I really like. It doesn't come off as a light beer without
Right.
any flavor.
There's
It's
no
got-
bite.
But there is no bite.
There's
That's
no
right.
bite.
Yeah, it's just as smooth as
That's
it
what
can
I
be.
like about it, because I can't really abide the heavy hop and the heaviness of the IPAs that.
But you want some flavor.
But I want some flavor.
Right.
I don't want flavored water.
Right, exactly.
And so this beats that.
I think this is one of the better examples. I would put this and maybe the Bombshell Blonde from our friends up at Southern Star up in
Southern
Conroe. I would put these two as kind of at the forefront of some of the better blonde ales that I've tried.
Absolutely.
I just think they satisfy. They're great in the summer. If it's a hot day, you can still drink these, very sessionable, but they don't have that aftertaste. They don't. And I've had a few blonde ales that do have a little bit of the bitter aftertaste. I guess in an attempt to bring that flavor in. But this I just think is very clean, and it's good really cold.
Oh, it's very good.
Yeah,
and what blonde is because it's just light?
It's just it's the color,
light color.
the color, and that's become a style of ale. Is the blonde ale? You'll see these are almost always that straw color. Straw color. If they're too light, blonde ale is a correct description. Pale ale is not always,
right?
Because sometimes pale ales can be very dark, but blonde ale, they're almost always.
You can take this tailgate
very light. Yes, you can. All right, so we've done a little bit of tasting. We'll do more. Plus, I want to get some info from Trey about how we can make a difference. Just ordinary people who enjoy cigars. We'll be back at Smoking and Toasting.
Diabetes diagnosis at the beginning of last year, so I had to give up most of my beer drinking. But the sampling's easy.
Yeah.
But it was it was sitting down with the 12-pack with your buddies at the cigar club, and that would get you into trouble.
And here I brought you something made from sugarcane. So.
Yeah, but you know what? Rum has very little carbs.
Right.
So it's actually the carb content from the beer that comes from the wheat.
That's what gets your body.
That's what gets your blood sugar. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But this is. And I'm a big Southern Star fan. I mean, the Bombshell Blonde is one of my favorites.
Yes.
But that right there, I would put right up there with it. I mean, that is a very good blonde ale.
Yeah. I like several of the beers these guys do. This is almost my favorite, and I like this more.
Is there
than
another
anything else.
Fireman's Ford brand?
No, well, Fireman's Ford is made by Real Ale, and Real Ale has. Pale ales and porters.
But anytime you see
things.
Fireman's Ford,
it's always a
it's
Real
that
Ale.
blonde.
Yep.
Okay.
I think it's the blonde ale, yeah. Because I have had a couple of their other beers that are also really good, but they're different variants.
It says forged from a friendship between Fireman's Texas Cruiser and Real Ale. It's our ever drinkable balance of smooth malt and zesty hops.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love the malt. The malt is very pronounced in it.
And that's what gives it some flavor without it being too crazy. So Pat, I don't know how you'll do with this one, but this is
I'm going to do so
India
good.
style red ale. So I did bring another one of these, so if you need to go back to it as a palate cleanser.
As a palate cleanser. I need a palate cleanser.
Well, I got to tell you, the red ales tend to be my favorites.
Oh, really?
Like I said,
Cool.
most of the blonde ales I'll drink is really Bombshell Blonde.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my go-to normally. If I can't get that, I'll get a Bombshell.
All right.
All right.
This
And
is
no
how we do it.
convenience fee.
No convenience fee.
This is
No, what, opening fee, or they call it a convenience fee, though,
Uncorking.
don't they? Uncorking. That's what I was looking for. All right. Get this Robert Ford thing here. Here we go. All right. I am ready when you are, Adam. Welcome back to show number 71. It's Smoking and Toasting, craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. Bacon.
Get the bacon. No, that's right. We have to stop.
Yeah, interesting article I stumbled across that I wanted to share. The 3 craft beer styles, according to one of the bigger craft beer sites on the web, that they are predicting are the styles set to go mainstream in 2018. All 3 of these kind of emerged as being more popular in 2017 than they had been, and now they're saying these may become very, very mainstream. The first is lagers, which is interesting because there's been so much focus on ales, right. Whether it's the IPAs or just even something like the blonde ale that we just sampled. Been a lot of focus on that over the last 5 to 10 years. Lagers now seem to be emerging as something that a lot of breweries are experimenting with and doing more with. And the difference between the lager and the ale is where the yeast is added, whether it's at the bottom or the top. So it's just a different brewing process. And they recommend in this article 3 to try on each of these, so I'll pass these along to you. They recommend Lager of the Lakes by Michigan's Bell's Brewery. And by the way, we are going to try a Bell's beer in this segment. It's not the lager, but we will be trying their red ale with honey. They also recommend Hell by Surly Brewing Company from Minneapolis. Yes, it's Surly. And Brooklyn Lager by Brooklyn Brewery, which I've had and I do agree is really, really fantastic. So, then the next category is sours. And sours had a big year in 2017. And they say, you know what? In 2018, you can expect these more tart, fruity kind of beers to gain momentum and spill out into the wider beer drinking public. Sour, the term can be used to encompass a variety of beers, from the traditional Belgian lambics and the Gose, which is the German style on that, to a whole range of crazy things that have been experimented with in the United States. But I always felt like sour is really, I'd call them tarts. Like they're not really sour. They just have a sort of a tartness to them. At least most of them. I guess I have had a few that really were sour.
Is that some of the grapefruit and strawberry and all those things?
Well, actually, there are some of those. I mean, probably my favorite sour that I've ever had is done by St. Arnold, and it's their Raspberry AF that they do. They took what was a sour, which was only available in the big bombers that they had. They basically took that off the market, added raspberry, brought it back as this Raspberry AF, and that's just, I almost always have some of that in the refrigerator. It's just a favorite. So the sours they recommend in this article are Atrial Rubicite from Austin, from the Jester King Brewery, Supplication from California's Russian River Brewing Company, which is a very well-known and very popular craft brewery, and Fuzzy by Side Project Brewing out of St. Louis. And then you mentioned the fruits.
It's almost like bands now,
It is. It really is.
It's like bands with funny names, and now, breweries and beers with
breweries
funny
and
names.
beers. That's absolutely right. Wicked Weed and so many of the very creatively named breweries. And Pat, you mentioned the 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 grapefruits and the oranges and the blood orange, that spills over into the third category, which is what they call New England IPAs. And the New England IPA style, it's a cloudy, floral, very fruit-forward cousin of the West Coast IPA, which is more kind of like bitter and straight-ahead hops. And this has been a big trend in 2017, and they're predicting that it spills over. These are usually cloudy. They're hazier like a Hefeweizen, but it's a much different flavor and has a tendency, like it said, to be very fruit-forward. And more sessionable, too, than your typical West Coast IPA. Meaning that you could have several of them and not feel like like you're so heavy from drinking those things.
Honey, I'm going to a session.
Yes, that's right.
Which means, you won't be back for a while.
That's right. They recommend Hetty Topper from Vermont's Alchemist Beer, Green by Treehouse Brewing Company out of Massachusetts, and Swish by the Bissell Brothers Brewing Company in Maine. So
had quite a few Treehouse
Yeah,
beers.
have you?
When I travel on the East Coast, they make a wide variety, obviously, like most of these craft brewers. And I've never had that one, but they have some great beers.
I lived in Boston for 7 years and became a huge fan of Harpoon while I was there. Not to mention the Sam Adams people, but so many of the Massachusetts and New England area breweries that you hear about now weren't even open yet when I was there. I mean, we had Harpoon, which I mentioned, and we had the guys that do Number 9, Magic Hat, out of Vermont, were there. But Clown Shoes and so many of the other ones that I hear a lot about now came after I left, so I've had to sample whatever ones of those I could find that made their way here to Texas. One of the breweries that gets a lot of attention.
Thank
Love
you.
that sound.
Have a nice day.
that made its way. The beers have made their way to Texas. Is Bell's, which is based out of Michigan, and they have a huge respect as a great craft brewer. And all of a sudden, about midway through last year, they started showing up on the shelves at Specs and other places. And it was a huge thing for Ian, my partner on the show, who's not with us today, but he was a big fan because he has a brother who lives up there, and they goes up to visit, has sampled the beers, but he's actually never talked to me about this particular one. So I'm pouring this now, and I'll pass these around. This one is called Roundhouse. It's Bell's Roundhouse. They describe it as an India-style red ale brewed with honey. So it'll be interesting to see whether it is more of a typical red, whether it's more of like an IPA because they're saying it's an India style, or whether the honey kind of takes over and makes it more of that, sort of honey sweet type of beer. I'll pass that to Adam, and then I'll pour this. And I have not ever tried this, so this one's a new one for me. What do you think? Smell it.
The nose.
You get some nice honey on the nose, don't you?
You do.
Yeah.
You get almost an IPA with honey on it.
Yes, and it's interesting because it calls it a red, but I've had plenty of IPAs that were that color that don't describe themselves as a red. So, well, I'll tell you, I think that's terrific. The honey is terrific. The honey really cuts the bitterness and makes it very, very drinkable. Well, these guys, I'm not sure they make a bad beer. I mean, Bell's is just
every one I've ever had when I've been in Michigan, and I was going to Michigan for work quite a bit, and found Bell's before they came down here. And they, again, just wonderful craft brewery that just makes great beer.
They're just, the bitterness is there, but they make it a part of the whole experience because the bitterness sort of comes 10 seconds after.
Right. It's definitely a delay when you get on the first finish, you get the honey. And then you just get that little bit of the hop bitter after the honey.
And if you're a hop forward IPA guy, this would be a good beer for you.
Well, absolutely,
because it does have a different
it
has a little different impact with the honey.
It really does. It says on the can that this IRA, which is India Red Ale, I suppose what that stands for. This IRA features bright, juicy tropical fruit and citrus aromas balanced with a judicious amount of toasted and caramel specialty malts. So it's interesting. They didn't really talk about the hops at all when they're describing the beer on the can. So Bell's Roundhouse, and I did pick this up here in Houston, so you can get it, I think, all over Texas and, of course, in Michigan and anywhere else that Bell's has managed to spread out to. But you're right; they are a brewery that has a great deal of respect. They're ones that people kind of hold up as a shining example of the best in craft brewing. Let me go back to CRA questions here, if I could. Tell me what I can do, just as a person that enjoys cigars. I read about this legislation. It makes me crazy. I love knowing that Cigar Rights of America and some other groups are banding together to fight this and lobby against it. But how can I help? Is there really such a thing as writing your congressman? Is that part of it?
Absolutely. I have led, alongside many other folks at CRA, the grassroots effort that we have tried. And the first thing I tell everybody, and knowing that I'm an ambassador for CRA, everybody says, well, you've got to say join the organization. That's got to be your first thing. And I said, well, yeah, but it's true. Because when we go in to talk to a congressman, and I've talked to both senators here from the state of Texas about these issues, if I have a big number of members, and I can stress how many members I have,
right,
that's how many voters out there that are going to participate in their interest with this issue. And so I tell everybody, join, because the NRA, the Sierra Club, any other organization that has an agenda drives it from their membership.
Right,
that's what gives them any justification to walk in and talk to a congressman.
Yeah, you gotta pay attention because we're X number of people strong.
Correct. And on an individual level, especially when we're dealing with state issues, because we always have some person. I think this last legislative session, it was really not talked about a lot. It died well before it even went into committee. But we always have the statewide smoking ban, which is many people in Austin want us to have the Houston-style smoking ban everywhere in the state. And we have a lot of communities that don't have those bans,
right.
And Spring, for instance, here north of Houston, bars can determine if they want to allow smoking or not. Those are the types of things that certain cities have freedoms to do.
Do they promote that, talk about it, or do they bother to make that?
I think some of them do. Those that really focus on getting their drinkers and that market in. But the thing that I tell everybody is all you have to do is write a check to your local state rep or the guy that you think is going to help you.
Right.
And, you write a guy a $200 check that's running for state representative, and that's coming from an individual.
And you have his attention?
You have his attention because you are a voter. So your $200 may not be a lot because he may get from this other lobbying organization or this PAC, he may get $1,000, $10,000. But he gets $200 from a guy that goes into the voting booth and a guy that talks to his neighbors.
Sure.
Yes.
So I tell everybody, you don't have to give a lot of money, but do it. And then get involved. Volunteer for the guy. Block walk for someone. If you're volunteering, you have his or her ear. And that means a lot when we're actually trying to impact change.
This is all a big libertarian issue. Where it's just the leave me alone crowd.
Right.
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
think you're right.
I know that, we've got to have a national defense, the roads have to work and all these things. But can I or can I not smoke a cigar? Should not be part of the assignment of what the feds are there to do. So,
absolutely right.
Big libertarian issue.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to pick this back up when we come back into the next segment. And I'm also picking up a bottle of Ron Barcelo Imperial Dominican rum, and we'll be trying that in the next segment as well. You are listening to Smokin' and Toastin'. This is all very good topics.
Can you do this? Yeah, that
I can
works.
see you when you do that on the monitor over there.
That works. You can do anything. I'll try to find out my password really soon. I just changed it. That's why, because something was up.
All right, gentlemen.
So maybe part of, the how do you use the product instructions might be. Do you remind them to, or is that cool to say?
Yes.
Share.
Oh yes,
on
and I don't do that enough.
Yeah.
I really.
Yeah. That's how to use the product. Open this up and hit share, and boom.
Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to get just the wrapper off here. Seems like it should be easier than it is. Thank you again for coming in, Trey. This is
Oh, no problem.
Yeah. This
So
is
I
I
appreciate you guys
think-
having me.
so. I'm gonna see if I can tell this right. My wife was talking about the show. She has rheumatoid arthritis, and she goes and gets regular treatment for it. They do a little infusion about once a month. And I think she was talking with her nurse and had mentioned the show somehow, and that was how your name came up to her.
Huh.
really.
And
you used to drive the van for
And you used to
97
drive-
Rock.
I did, yes.
It's like, come on now.
That's just crazy, isn't it?
Was Ed Beecham there?
No, the Bill Moffitt was
Bill
the
Moffitt,
promotions
sure.
director back
Oh, yeah.
then, and the younger guy that ran us, that worked for Bill, he ended up being in the business for a long time, and his name just flies out of my head. But Bill Moffitt was the big
He
boss.
was a good friend, and,
and that
then
was-
I brought him over to KLOL.
Well, and that was where we had Moby and Matthews in the morning, and I always laughed because in my days at Z107, I used to always get a phone call from Bill Matthews, or not Bill, Matthews from Moby and Matthews. He used to always give me a call and go, "Hey, you stole my name," ha ha, as a joke, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
he
yeah.
knew who I was
That's right,
from the
that's
days
right.
at 97 Rock. And I literally did overnights. I mean, I
Yeah.
was not.
Yeah,
I didn't have a real big spot.
Yeah.
But I do remember having to run the board for one of the guys when Roy Disney came in, and because they were owned by Shamrock Broadcasting, and Roy Disney came in for the kickoff party, and I remember sitting there and having to run the board. So I was running the recorded,
Sure.
voiceovers, and then running the thing, and I remember coming back into the party after I was done and got relieved by whoever came in after.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious. Everybody, claps and gives you a standing ovation because you missed the party to go do this.
Yeah.
And Roy Disney walks over and just goes, "I want to thank you. Committed employee. Thank you very much." And the whole thing running through my mind is, how did I get here? I mean, at that point, I'm like 19, 20 years old, and I'm like,
Yeah.
how did I get here? I still run through that today. I mean,
Yeah.
I was at a family reunion this past weekend and talking to my cousin that's my age, that we were running buddies here in Houston. And, back when I worked for 97 Rock, he used to run around with me. And, I mean, he and I would, share the introductions that
Yes.
Moby got us with, young ladies in the crowds.
That's right.
And I laugh because he goes, I mean, he's a very big pawnbroker, owns a lot of pawn shops in Louisiana, state chairman of the Pawnbrokers Association, and and here I've done all this stuff. I've go to Washington, National Association of Foreign Trade Zones, chairman of the board, and all these things. And he and I looked at each other and went, "How?
How? Yeah, right.
How did we get here?"
How did we get here? From there.
Exactly.
We always say whenever anything goes right here at the company, we always say, "Not bad for a couple of clowns from Texas."
Exactly.
All right, ready for, this is number 4, correct? All right, thank you, Ed. The Houston, Texas-based band, The Sufferers, who are awesome. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 71. We've titled it Fight for Your Right to Smoke a Cigar. And this is the radio program that's all about fine spirits, craft beer, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. Ian, my partner on the show, by the way, is on assignment. He will be back in a couple of weeks. Thanks to Pat Fant for filling in for him today. And thank you to our special guest, Trey Boring, who is with the Cigar Rights of America Association. Is that right?
Yep.
It's just CRA.
CRA, Cigar Rights of America.
And so we were talking in the last segment about what you can do as an individual, and you were saying that it does still make sense to write your congressman. It does still make sense if you think there's a congressman or representative that
There's a PAC's giving you money because they want to influence you, and you need a lot of money to run.
right.
When I give you money, I represent the guy that's actually going to go into the voting booth and punch a button.
Punch a button, yes.
And that means something to candidates. Now, unfortunately, smaller race candidates, it means more to. Your congressman, your state rep, your state
Right.
senator. When you get to senators, federal, national senators and presidential campaigns, unfortunately, you have to have a lot of money.
Right, before you're noticed,
Right.
Before you're
as
noticed,
much. Sure.
sure.
Now, when you join CRA, are there dues? How does that work?
It's generally $35 a year.
Okay, so that's not bad.
Not bad, and they'll usually send you, because the cigar manufacturers partner with us, they usually send you a couple of cigars, So
that's very cool.
It's very much like an NRA, they give you a freebie when you sign up, kind of thing.
While
Do I
it's
get
still-
a welcome kit in the mail?
Yes.
Yep.
I love those.
While it's still legal to do that, I guess.
Correct.
That's that.
Correct.
So join now.
Join now, and it's one of those things where at different festivals and things, we'll have tables set up. and
I've seen your booth at a number of different things.
Sometimes you can get a discount if you sign up at one of the festivals, but it's all really about numbers. And our point to everybody is, if you think your $35 really makes or breaks the overall process, is it doesn't.
Right.
But it helps. And the thing that means the most to CRA is you as a person. Yeah. You as a member is what makes the difference, because then we can call you to action. We can get you to do things. We can give you the resources you need in order to talk to your local congressman's office and do the things that we need done in order to push this agenda forward.
A lot of the groups that are for this increased regulation of cigars are groups that are very well organized. They have very well-funded lobbying campaigns going on in Washington. And this is what you can do as a person who enjoys your right to smoke a cigar.
Yep.
This is what you can do to make sure your voice is heard as well, because correct me if I'm wrong, lobbying's one of the biggest reasons a bill passes or doesn't pass, correct?
It's like
Absolutely.
artificial intelligence. That's what you're lobbying is. Am I right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what that is. Where does the pipe guy come in here? Or gal, I guess.
Well, the interesting thing for pipes is, caught up in all this mess has been the regulations within the FDA that talk about being a manufacturer. And there are many that believe that the enforcement from a pipe tobacco standpoint will come in relative to your local cigar shop or tobacconist that also does pipes, or maybe it's strictly a pipe store, may do their own blends, right? They may take a few different tobaccos and they may make a blend.
Custom blend
For their shop. And does that, under these FDA guidelines, constitute being a manufacturer? Well, if it does, you're talking about a $100,000 investment for a store to get licensed with the FDA if all these regulations go through.
That's absurd.
And I may be misquoting the number, but it's somewhere crazy.
But it's something like that.
Some crazy number.
And so the pipe guys really have a stake in this as well, because the same thing that we talked about with the boutique cigar guys. If I've got to spend $100,000 to get certified, do I sell enough cigars to do that?
Right.
And that may be all my profit for the last 3 years.
Yeah, cost of entry is so high.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's the same principle. Is if that you draw that back down to pipe tobacco, and then basically we're all smoking King Alberts and Macanudos, or something that's been around for a long time, because no new cigars will be able to come out because of the cost and the barrier to entry.
We had Rocky Patel on the show a month or so ago when we were in Las Vegas for the Big Smoke, and he talked a bit about his efforts in Washington, lobbying and talking to me. Is that something that happens alongside what you're doing? Does he join forces with you? Is he his own sort of entity in doing that?
Well, I think all of the manufacturers represent themselves, because it is the industry that pays their bills.
Right.
However, Rocky is a board member of CRA and is a very staunch supporter of CRA. I have some very humorous stories that have less than colorful language of conversations I've had with Rocky.
I can only imagine.
Related to CRA. But, it's an interesting thing is the answer to your question is yes and yes. I mean, they are doing it because they need to, but they're also doing it in conjunction with not only CRA, but IPCPR, which represents the retailers, and other organizations, because this is a fight for the survival of an industry.
Rocky was saying in the earlier days of the Rocky Patel Cigar Company, after he renamed it from Indian Tobacco, he spent most of his time on the road promoting the brand, going to cigar shops and events and whatever. And now he spends most of his time doing things that are more politically driven and supporting these kind of causes, because that's where he feels like his time is best spent right now.
And I agree, and there are multiples of guys out there doing that in the industry that are big supporters, and Rocky tends to be one of my heroes because he does take a forward approach and everything. I mean, if you've ever been out drinking with Rocky, he takes a very forward approach as well. But I mean, it's it's one of those things where he never shies away from what he needs to do to protect your and I's right to smoke.
Where is the momentum right now?
The momentum is really with Congress. If we can get a lot of the budgetary things passed that are coming along, there are some things that are working through those processes that we potentially hold out hope would allow for an exemption maybe to be put into effect and those types of things. But it is really from a legislative standpoint and an administration standpoint. The new director of HHS and the FDA director and those types of things come from an administration that's for small business. So we really believe that we have a good set of momentum with the small government crowd.
Is that helping?
It is helping. It is helping. We're getting a lot of intros. I say we like I'm sitting there in the meetings, but CRA is getting a lot of intro into these discussions with the other organizations, the IPCPRs, and everybody as well. But it's really I do this for trade legislation a lot in my day job, and it is really about finding your inroad and jumping and running as fast and as hard as you can at that inroad that you have.
We don't wax too political on the show, except for the place where that politics might or might not intersect with, cigars and spirits and craft beer. And I'm actually about to pop the top on this rum, and
I'm hearing it.
It's always a nice sound.
Oh,
there we go. Very nice.
Ouch.
But tell us a little bit about how you feel this particular administration, again, whether you like them or not from a political standpoint, just specifically as it relates to the cause and to CRA. Trump is not a smoker.
Right.
He's not a drinker. So he doesn't have necessarily a personal passion for these things, but he did appoint a fairly friendly guy to the FDA. Is that right?
Correct.
Even though the whole idea of FDA being the regulatory body over cigars is, I think, a questionable thing. But what's your take on the environment right now? Is this, let me ask the question this way, is this the time to get things done?
I think compared to the last 8 years, it is the time we have to get it done. And again, it's not because this is a passionate issue for anybody. I mean, it's a passionate issue for me.
But it's a freedom issue.
But it's a freedom issue, and
That's
it's
all.
a smaller government issue. And what we see in the people that he's appointing are people that believe in smaller government. And as long as we continue to argue from that standpoint,
Sure.
I can't walk into his administration and go, "Hey, protect me! They want to take away my rights to smoke cigars." You're not gonna get as much of a response, right?
Sure.
But if I walk in there and go, "Look, I've got a government agency that's about to initiate control over a segment of an industry," and then from that they're basically going to
That's a good
grow.
story. That's a good small
Exactly.
business. Freedom and small business.
Freedom and small business. Plus, you look at the people that we have that are helping us out from Honduras, Dominican, and Nicaragua. I mean, if the FDA kills this industry here, you destabilize three of the nicest, smoothest running democracies right now in Central and South America and the Caribbean.
Yeah, that's right. Ron Barcello, Imperial Dominican rum, speaking of the Dominican, is what we're sampling today, our spirit for the day. And it is something I read a great review of in Cigars and Leisure magazine just a few days ago. And I picked up a bottle for us to sample today because it paired so well with the cigar that they were pairing it with in the article. And they talked about how it was a rum that really tasted a lot more expensive than it was. So I thought we would try this today and see what you think. Now, Pat, I saw you make a face. Did it not?
No, in my mind, I'm thinking nurses are standing by. This is, this is wonderful.
This is pretty nice on the finish. Now, I'm not getting as much on the nose as I was expecting. Are you?
No, it's it is a wonderful, wonderful sipping rum.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, it is, and it's one of those where, much like we talk about cigars, the price for this, you're going to get your more than value out of what this costs because it's not very expensive.
No, it's really not. I want to say it was about $30.
Right.
Which even most of the good añejo rums that I like and buy on a somewhat regular basis are in the 40 to 50 range for the añejo. You can get less aging, of course.
Correct.
By going, but this is, quite frankly, this is about the same price as most lines mid-level rum, I guess you would say, and it tastes fantastic. I think it's got a little burn on the back, so you know you're having some alcohol.
It's a little bit of a whiskey type finish, I guess, is what I would say.
Don't light a match.
But that's one thing that a lot of the people that I talk to that are trying rums these days are whiskey drinkers looking to, expand their palate, and so they really like this type of thing. I think it's very good. We'll talk a little bit more about it, and our final segment coming up, we also will be tasting the Ballast Point Sea Monster. It's an Imperial Stout from San Diego, California, and that's coming up as well. You're listening to Smoking and Toasting.
It warms you right up.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, that's good.
You ever had the Ron Centenario out of Costa Rica?
Yes. Fantastic.
I tell you the story how I found that. I took my son, who's 23 now. I took him at 12 years old. He went with me and my dad. Grandson, father, son, fishing trip in Costa Rica. We're in the airport there in San Jose coming back, and I look around and my son's gone. I'm going, crap, so I'm looking for him, and he's trying to catch my attention. He's over there standing next to this beautiful Tika lady that Costa Rican girl. That's got the little Costa Rican cowboy hat on, got a white shirt that's low cut with wonderful assets, black chaps and tight blue jeans, and I'm going, that's my boy. That's my boy. So I walk over, I go, what are you doing over here? And he says, well, she's sampling rum, but I can't have any rum. I'm not old enough. I go, yeah, you're not. And she's looking at me, and she starts telling me about the rum. Now, I can't tell you anything she told me. That's all I know is that while she talked, she jiggled. And that's all I can remember. And she gave me a little sampling cup, and I tried it, and I went, yeah, how many bottles can I buy? Three.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, everybody goes, well, did you like it? I go, I had no clue. I'm literally just enthralled with this girl going, if, because I was still married at the time, and I'm like, man, if I wasn't married, I would be getting you, I'd move down here, or have you move up there, whichever way you wanted it. So I get back and I go to my cigar shop there in Webster, and I bring the bottle in, one of the bottles in, and I go, all right, guys, I have no idea if this is any good or not. This is what we, But I told them the story. Everybody laughed, so it's great because they all knew my son, And I said, we need to try it. So we all tried it. It was the 20-year-old. Mm-hmm. And it was back when it used to come in the leather-wrapped bottle.
Yes.
We're all going, ooh. Mm-hmm. So the running joke around there for many years was that big-titted girls can pick out the best rum.
I would support that.
Well, and before Specs picked it up, we were actually ordering it air freight. I had a connection. We were ordering it air freight out of Costa Rica.
Wow.
To where it was coming in after freight was like $50 a bottle. But nobody cared.
Right.
Everybody was like, fine. And we were air freighting cases in.
Wow.
About once every 2 months.
Yeah, Ian got me a bottle of it for my birthday, I think, last year. And oh, my God.
Well, the 25-year-old that you can find at Specs is probably my favorite. The 20-year-old's still very good, but the 25-year-old's probably my favorite.
And what's the name again?
Ron Centenario.
Centenario.
The 30-year-old, if you've tried that one, I would say don't spend the extra $10, $15 on the 30-year-old. The 25-year-old's for the price. That's your best
where the
value.
price to quality comes.
Exactly.
I love this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
No. He got me that, and Pat got me this wonderful tequila. The one
can't
in
do
the
tequila.
the one in the
Genie
crazy
bottle.
shaped genie bottle. Oh
Yeah.
man, that stuff.
Yeah, no, I
don't have any of that left. That's gone.
Well, you would have plenty if I was around. Tequila's not
So
my
you're
friend.
not a tequila guy. Well, see, I
Oh no! I love tequila.
It doesn't
okay.
like you.
No.
Makes your clothes fall off.
Yeah.
That and I'm 20 feet tall. I can beat up any man in the room, and I can sleep with any woman in the room.
See,
If you don't believe me, just ask me. I'll be proud to tell
give
you.
you some
while I'm
tequila,
drinking.
and you'll tell us
I'll
all about it.
tell you all about it.
I'm a tequila fan, but Ian has slowly opened me up to really, really good whiskeys. It's been a great educational process for me because I knew so much more about rums and tequilas than I did about whiskey. So it's been really fun learning. So, all right, the Sea Monster is next.
Wow. All right.
All right, guys. I do have a little article here about best beer in America according to Beer Connoisseur. I'll just actually let's do these whiskey predictions since this is before long. It's going to seem dumb to do predictions for 2018 because it'll be February. All right, you ready?
On the beach in Hawaii.
So perfect music accompaniment as we start our final segment here of Smoking and Toasting Show number 71 because this rum has transported me to the beach of somewhere. I can tell you that. This is really terrific. And you, the Ron Barcelo Imperial we were mentioning is just not that expensive. And I would almost have to say that for the money. This might be one of the better rums that I've ever had because it's easily rivaling the $50 strata, I think, of rums. It's really, really quite good.
Well, and you have to really like a rum with a little bit more of a whiskey finish. I mean, that's the thing. It's just it's not a straight. A lot of good rums out there that are in 20-year-old, 25-year-old rums that have a very sweet finish. There's a time and a place that you love those, but there's a time where you want something with a little bit more of a whiskey finish, and I think this has it.
And I also think this is good to have in your bar if you have friends who come over that are whiskey fans that want to try something. This is a good starter for them. On rum, a very good starter. Whiskey. Speaking of whiskey, Whiskey Wash is one of the more popular whiskey websites, and they have whiskey predictions for 2018. So I thought I'd share this because before long it'll be the second or third month of 2018. It'll be a little late for predictions, but here's their predictions for the whiskey industry and whiskey fans. They say, and there's only like 4 or 5 of these, America's single malt rise will continue. So talking about single malt whiskeys made in the United States, and that's definitely something that has seen a big year in 2017. They say that will continue and be even bigger in 2017. They say whiskey drinkers, we were just talking about this, will continue expanding their focus to other spirits as well as beer and wine. That it says you hang out with whiskey long enough and you can help pick up some knowledge about other drink categories. Eventually you're going to start to wonder what port tastes like and, blah, 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 blah. So that's a prediction for 2018.
So it's a gateway spirit.
It's a gateway spirit, and that's good. By the way, we have mentioned this. We will be putting this together later this year. We will be doing a gateway beers episode where we'll be talking about and sampling those beers that are the ones that start you down the path towards craft beer. If you've just been drinking the mainstream beers, what are the best beers for people to go, okay, I know there's more out there. I want to try it, but I'm scared of the Ballast Point Sea Monster Imperial Stout. What should I do? There are some great gateway
I'm a rolling
beers.
rock drinker.
Right.
What do I do now?
What do I do next?
Right.
Exactly. They say that acquisitions will pick up speed. They're predicting that a lot of the small craft distilleries will go the way of many of the craft breweries in the last year, and they predict that the bourbon bubble will wobble. They're not predicting that bourbon will actually stop growing, but they're saying that the growth will be slowing a little bit in 2018 for bourbon. And so, Chris Hart, if you're listening, I would really love to see your comments in the Facebook Live thread about whether you think that's accurate or not, because nobody I know knows more about bourbon than Chris Hart, who was the guest host on the show last week. And then finally, they say craft whiskey goes worldwide. There are now more than 2,000 craft distilleries in the United States, and the United Kingdom is coming along quickly right behind us. So it's something that you almost always had thought of as being Scottish and maybe Irish is now just proliferating everywhere, the craft distillery. So,
well, being in Nashville this week, the interesting thing is Tennessee whiskey, everybody thinks Jack Daniels.
Right.
There are a number of craft distilleries doing Tennessee whiskey, a Tennessee sour mash whiskey that are, obviously of the same genre as a Jack Daniels, but they're doing it on their own, and they're doing it, in small batch distilleries. Very interesting. They're
very much like the craft beer scene in the St. Louis, Missouri area has exploded. And you think of St. Louis, you think Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri. That's as mainstream a beer as it gets. But there's so many great little craft breweries cropping up in St. Louis and Kansas City and that whole area in the Midwest, and it's become a thing. I think. And, being a bit of a homer here, but I think that the Texas craft brew scene is just absolutely one of the most exciting in the country right now. I really do. It has been both in the Austin area and Houston, now San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, they've just some amazing breweries that have cropped up. And there's just in Houston alone, there'll be another dozen by the end of 2018.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people in the craft brew scene are predicting that the next real trend is more breweries, smaller breweries. In other words, breweries that have a brewery and a tap room, and maybe they have some distribution out into the local area, but they don't necessarily distribute all across the state or into other states. And so I like that because it just means more road trips. And that's something that
just more
really
beer
good.
overall.
More beer.
Just more people making beer.
We've had reps from Ballast Point on before. They brought some amazing beers, but they did not bring the Sea Monster. And I picked this bad boy up a couple of weeks ago. Actually intended to sample it last week, and we ran out of time. But Sea Monster is Ballast Point's Imperial Stout, and it does come with one of the picture on the front. I don't know if you can pick that up in the video feed there, but the picture on the front is of whatever that fish is that has the little light bulb on his antenna and uses that light bulb to attract other fish, and then he eats them. That's who's on the front.
That's the disco ball fish.
That's the disco ball fish. That is the Sea Monster. So here's an Imperial Stout, and so it's going to have some kick. And I was telling Trey when we were starting the show that we generally wait until the end for the higher ABVs, and that way we don't destroy the palate too early. And you were mentioning you had some stout friends that'd be jealous of us for
absolutely. I've got
this,
several friends that are craft brew nuts that are going to absolutely be upset that I get to try a stout.
You're right about that bottle and that label. That is a little intimidating.
It really is.
To walk in and go, I'm brave enough to have Sea Monster stout.
Well, part of
Ballast Point.
Part of the whole reason that it made some sense to do a show where we turn on the microphones and drink stuff and talk about what it tastes like is there's so much out there. You walk into a Specs or one of the places where you're going to shop, and there's bottle after bottle after bottle like this, and this might be a $12-15 bottle. Right. I mean, you can get some of these for less, but it's like, okay, am I going to have any luck? Am I going to buy anything that I like if I'm spending $15 on a bomber? So we thought, at least we can taste this and tell you what we think. You
can have a sip of it, and you go, yes, I'm brave enough to try a $12 to $15 bottle, and then I hate it, and then I'm stuck.
Right. Well, we're being brave for you, and I have a feeling that we're going to like this. Here's what it says on the bottle while the guys are sampling. Our Sea Monster Imperial Stout explores the darkest reaches of the traditional oatmeal stout. This bold, rich brew first lures you in with roasted coffee notes.
It does that.
Then grabs hold with hints of bittersweet chocolate and currant.
Let me go.
Back with a perfect hop balance, you'll soon discover this is one monster of mythic proportions. So they do a nice job of tying it together with the illustration here.
They let the dough rise twice on this.
It's an American
mean,
stout with oatmeal, and it is 10.0 on the ABV. So,
man.
so
let's
we've had
see.
higher, but not too much. Yeah,
No, it's a very rich
It is
stout.
rich.
it is almost coffee-like in terms of its consistency.
Yeah.
Like it's a little thicker than a lot of the beers that you might try. But again, the stouts and the porters can often be, although porters are generally not as thick, but a lot of the stouts can be. This is, Ian would say if he were here, that this has got a really decent viscosity to it.
Yes, it
You know?
does. Yes. Well, in stouts, you get a lot of the flavored ones. You get the chocolates and the different things. And I'm not a big fan of a lot of the flavored ones.
Right.
This is a pretty straightforward stout. Now, you get the notes as they're talking
There's
about.
definitely some
There's
cocoa
some notes
in
of cocoa
here, yeah.
and coffee, but it's not a flavored stout.
Now, Pat, this is definitely much heavier and darker than what you normally drink.
Wow.
What's
This
your take
is
on it?
not a beer. This is a career right here. I mean, you could devote your life to getting there. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
It really is.
I'm not expecting it to become part of your rotation, but what's your take on it as somebody
Well,
who doesn't normally go this dark or heavy with the beer?
I'm going to say it's beautifully executed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the people that built this battleship in a glass really knew what they were doing. I mean, you can tell it's very well done.
I'm always interested to try beers that are not what a particular brewery is really known for. Ballast Point is really known for IPAs and for having a lot of different iterations of IPAs, and they were one of the first to really jump into the whole juicy New England-style IPA, even though they're in San Diego, California.
Right.
And even their heavier beers have a tendency to be more ales with a lot of hops to them. This is a completely different animal, as indicated by the photo and by the picture on the bottle. But I'm always interested to see. Okay, these guys are known for IPAs. What's their stout going to be like?
I'm going to try to make a White Russian with this stuff.
You almost could, I think.
I think I could. I'm gonna give it a try.
Add a little Irish cream to this, and it would
Somebody
drink even
would say,
smoother.
"What is in that?" I mean, this little Irish cream, and some vodka. I don't know.
Well, this is a fascinating beer. I really like it. I'm an occasional stout drinker, but this is, as you said, it's very straightforward. But I love the subtlety of the flavors.
Yes.
It really works for me. So, we have I had a great time, Trey. Thank you so much for coming in and for sharing CRA with us and what it's all about. What are the best ways for people who've heard about Cigar Rights of America, who want to find out how they can jump in and do something? Tell us your website and what kind of resources it has.
We have Cigar Rights of America. You look us up through any of your web search engine, it's going to pop right up.
Okay.
The Facebook, if you there's some Facebook presence there. When you get to the website, you can find a list of the ambassadors, guys around the country that do what I do. But it also has membership. It has updates, ways that you can pull down the latest information of what's going on. We put our updates there for the court case and for the legislation and where we're at. We also list the congressmen and the senators that are supporting us.
Last question. Are you optimistic or pessimistic right now about the chances to beat back this latest wave and establish a little more of a beachhead while there might be time?
I'm more optimistic than I am pessimistic, but I get paid to be a realist in my career, and the fight's not over. I mean, I need everybody that can hear this podcast to join in and jump in, because this is the time where we need to make hay, and this is the time we need to be pushing the issue and we need your help.
Search it on Google, Cigar Rights of America. Trey, thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate it. We also encourage you to share the show, whether you share the podcast or share the Facebook Live feed. In fact, I should have talked about this at the beginning of the show, but if you're watching us on Facebook Live, anytime we're on, be sure to hit share so it'll go out to all of your friends, and we can touch a lot of people with the show. That's what we're looking forward to doing. I want to thank Pat Fant for
You're welcome.
sitting in
It
and
was
being
fun.
a wonderful co-host, and I really am looking forward to Ian coming back, and he will in a couple of weeks. But next week, Maria Todd joins us, and maybe Steve Robinson too. I'm working on getting him in the room for a really wonderful light beer blind taste test 2.0. We did run out of time for sampling the Mumford & Sons IPA. We'll have to get to that next week. Have a wonderful week, my friends, and as we love to say at the end of the show, cheers.
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 There's plenty more of this if you want.
Oh,
Oh, I got to drop back to
I also
the
have
south side.
I also have another fireman's here, Pat, if you
oh,
want.
thank you.
Have some.
I hate to use it all up.
No, that's why I brought it.
Oh, it's cold, too.
Well, now this is what. So I discovered this when Chris and Yuante came over to the house one night. They both came in wheeling this contraption,
Yes.
which when you open it up has like all these dividers and stuff, and they
Oh,
have
yeah.
whiskeys in it. And I was like, so I'd been bringing a little cooler pack, and I was like, man, that's so cool. So my wife bought me one for
That's really
for my
nice.
birthday last year.
And where does the coldness go? Is
well,
it
what I do is I use